Hello. Yep.
Yeah, sweet. Cool. So welcome to this second, more intimate Wanderings and Wonderings book launch interview, I guess. So I wanted to do a little talk, but I thought rather than just doing like a monologue, it'd be more interesting to get Ross to come and interview me. You all know Ross, so I'm not going to introduce him this time. Ross has roughly 5 questions, which he's going to ask. You guys can ask questions as well if you want. And then afterwards, if you've not yet had a chance to look at the prints and the books, you can come and do that and have a chat with me. Dave Fleming has disappeared. Let's maybe wait for him to come back, because he's one of the new people. So we'll wait for him to come so he can hear the talk and doesn't miss it. So...
Oh, you could sing Shed 7 while you wait.
We could do. Hey, David.
Just come on.
Dave's back. Hey, Dave.
There we go. You got out of that one.
Sweet. So, Ross, do you want to start asking some questions?
Yes, so... how did the book come about? And I know you've said before that it was a long process, so why was that?
Yeah, so the book is 10 and a half years worth of photography. So it runs from 2013 up to 2023. And 2013 was kind of when I started thinking about being a photographer. So that's when I got my first film camera, one that had actual like controls on it and you could mess things up, and it wasn't just like a typical point and shoot or a disposable where it did it all for you. And my younger brother, Joel, he was always the kind of more artistic, creative one in the family. So I asked him for advice, and he said, just get the same one as I've got. It's a Canon AE1. It's about £35. This was 10 years ago. They're about 4 times that now. And you can get the film from Poundland, which was amazing at the time. So yeah, I remember getting that and took it on a family holiday to Jersey, took a few images, just kind of messing around, not really knowing what I'm doing. I did get a really lovely blurry one, which at the time I was rather disappointed by, but now it's actually one of my favourite images, and it's in the book somewhere. It's just of a really blurry sea, and you can just look, you can see a very tiny surfer, and I think the fact that it's blurry really fits with the image. So I took that and a bunch of other ones, and then a few weeks later, no, it's not that one, there's another one, see if you can find it. A few weeks later, we went and climbed Ben Nevis. And I remember just being in this place and just being so thankful that I had this tiny little box which could capture some of the memories and the feelings of being in this wonderful space where we were adventuring and wandering. And so for a few years I was putting these images on Instagram and writing little captions with them, trying to toy with whether I should just write a single word or a phrase or a poem or something longer. And it was really interesting, depending on where I'd been and how I felt about being in the place, led to a slightly different style of caption. And it didn't even feel right to call them captions after a while, so I started calling them provocations, which we'll come more onto later. Provocations, to provoke people. And so, yeah, they were on Instagram for a while, and then my granddad said to me around 2018, I really like seeing your pictures, but I'm not on Instagram, could you put them together into a book? And I remember thinking, like, that would be nice, but actually, books are kind of expensive to make, who's going to buy a book by me? I've not really done anything yet, I still don't really know what I'm doing, I'm still making it up as I go along. And so I kind of shelved the idea and thought I'll do it in the future when I'm more accomplished and I kind of actually feel like I know what I'm doing. So a few years went by, and then obviously there was a pandemic and had more time to do different projects, and I worked on this book, which is York's Creative Spaces. And this was like a much easier project to do because it wasn't about me, it wasn't really like my art, it was me going and documenting a bunch of people and telling their story. And so it felt like I was being useful. And I just approached this as if I was writing blog posts. So I just wrote 35 entries as if it was going onto the web, but then I printed them instead and put them in a book. And it seemed quite easy and straightforward. And then, yeah, that came out in 2021. And then last year, 2023, I thought it's been a couple of years since this book. What could I do next? And look back at my images, and this project came out of it.
When we spoke about the book before, you said that the finished book is nothing like the one that you set out to make. So why is that?
Yeah, so as I said, with this York's Creative Spaces book, which was the first one, I'd never put a book together, and so I just kind of worked on it, basically did one project and then the next and the next, and it was quite easy to go through in terms of a sequence. Whereas with this one, when I tried to work through it in sequence, like chronologically, it was really, really boring. It was just like, here's one adventure, here's another adventure, and there wasn't much of a narrative there. So I kind of wondered, could I almost like teach people what I'd picked up on photography. So over 10 years, it's like, here's what I knew at the start, here's where I went wrong, here's where I improved. And I tried to write that, but it just wasn't anything that hadn't been done before. There's plenty of books out there that you could buy with that narrative. And so I got rid of that, scrapped it, had all the images, there was over 200 of them, printed them all out and put them on my floor. And then I started messing them up in different orders and looking for different combinations of images to see how they would match. So I took one which was maybe from 2013, one which was from 2019, one from 2023, and moved them all around. And from that, without the text, a new story came out, and one which was much more about nature and the environment. And it kind of gave me this sense of like, actually, the reason that these images are so special is because day to day I feel actually quite disconnected from nature and the environment, and that kind of became the central theme for the book.
So there's a metaphor that comes up a few times in the book, which is that humans are to nature what a teenager is to a parent. Can you elaborate a bit more on this?
Yeah, so this wasn't like a saying I'd heard anybody say before, and I'd never even thought about it. It was almost like it came to me through the images, which sounds a little bit weird. Like, I'm not really like a spiritual person, I guess, but it felt like it wasn't my idea in some ways. It was like it was just sat there, and then it came through me. And the story that came out was like this idea of teenagers. It feels like it sums up where we are culturally at the moment, because you get a lot of people saying, you know, there's humans and then there's nature, as if it's like two separate things. When really we're not that separate. Like, we are from nature, we are all from the earth, we are all children of the earth, and we are in no way separate or superior to that. And it felt like we'd been through this period where we'd kind of been living within nature and housed by it and mothered by it, and then we kind of discovered the power of science, and we tried to push the boundaries a little bit and work out what can we do. And we've had lots of amazing things which have come from that in terms of, you know, improving standards of living and medicine and all these lovely inventions. But we can't pretend that there's not been like a downside to that, and that we've not sort of found that there's a line, and if we go too far beyond the line, that there are consequences. And so that reminded me a lot of my own teenage experience, which is like, I know I can go up to here safely, but I want to go there. What happens if I go there? And it's then reflecting on that and working out, actually, okay, do I want to keep pushing the boundary forever and potentially risk ruining everything? Or do I think actually those boundaries which were set out by my parents or by nature, they're probably there for our own benefit, and we should probably listen to them.
Yeah. I can relate to that. I didn't used to respect my parents or nature.
And has that changed?
Yes. So this is a photography book, but it does contain 27 provocations, as you call them. As we heard earlier, they are called provocations. Why did you include these provocations?
Yeah, so for me, these are there to really remind people to gently come back to the narrative that I want to tell. Because with photography books, there's like a certain way to read a photography book, which I didn't know when I put this book together. It's something that I've learned from doing a couple of courses from Magnum. They've got some really wonderful courses if you're interested in putting photo books together, but they really teach you sequencing a book is, it's almost like sequencing a short film. So you present a bunch of images, and it's the relationship between each image which gives you the story which sits with you emotionally. So to describe that, it's like you could have a bunch of stuff that's shot different continents, different time periods, and they might not be related at all, but your brain will automatically try and find a relationship between the two of them, because that's what we do, we look for patterns. And the relationship that you come across, that sits with you as the story, because it's something that you found for yourself. And so you hear this a lot in terms of storytelling and filmmaking and things like that. You hear people say, show us, don't tell us. And so if you have a story and you just say, this happened and this happened and this happened and this happened, it becomes very dull very quickly. Whereas if you can show like a really vibrant image and then another vibrant image, you can work out what's happened between the two to summarise the story for yourself. So if this is all like a little bit abstract, I'm just going to give a quick example. So if you think about a hand, the hand is holding a knife. We see the colour red. We see a moon. if you think about this sequence of images, it feels kind of like a horror story. It feels a little bit tense. Whereas if I say we see a hand, the hand is holding a knife, we see the colour red, we're cutting into a tomato, suddenly we're watching a cooking programme. And it's the same 3 images at the start, but that last one at the end completely changes the relationship between all of the images and gives you a different story. And so these provocations are really there to just gently bring you back to the narrative that I want to get across, which is about this disconnection from nature, and not have people just think, oh, hasn't Ben been to lots of lovely places?
Okay, so we're going to have a look at an example of one of the provocations with one of the images, and I'm going to try and choose the one that I didn't choose earlier. Yes, I have successfully done that.
I'll hold one side.
Yeah, we haven't learned, have we? Okay, so, well, I'll show the image first. So it's this one. You can find it if you've been so generous to have bought a book. I've always tried to do everything at once, but a busy life is not always a full life.
Yes, so this is a lesson that I continually need to remind myself. It sits next to an image of Route 1 in California, and it's an open road. And really, I think this is quite a good metaphor, because lots of what we want to do is we want to travel and we want to go new places, but in order to do that, you kind of need an open road to get there. You can't really get where you want to go if there's a traffic jam in front of you. But lots of us create traffic jams for ourselves by having too many things to do. We're trying to pursue too many things at once. We've got too many old projects which we're not cutting or finishing to let us go forward to the next one. And so, remind me of the line again?
I'm just taking my finger out of the book. Hang on.
I think it was...
If someone would have found it who bought a book, then I wouldn't have this problem.
Don't worry, I was going to dig into it further, but
I had my finger in there.
That's all right. No, but the end bit, a busy life is not
Here
always.
it is. Hang on. I've always tried to do everything at once, but a busy life is not always a full life.
Yeah, so it's that thing of like, you can try and cram in as many things as you want, but if you're here, there, and everywhere for 2 minutes, like you're doing a lot of things, but it's not really very fulfilling. Whereas I'm sure most of us realise, as you get older, you might have slightly fewer friends, but more deeper connections with those people. I think that's probably as good a metaphor as any. Is what I'm trying to say there.
Yeah. Can I choose another one?
You can.
I like that picture, but it's a very short provocation, so I'm going to find another one. That's the one we did earlier.
Do you want me to hold the microphone?
Yeah, please. Here we go. Okay, so this one is this image of the moon through a tree. I remember this provocation. This is my favourite one, actually. So they say time machines don't exist, but where are you now? Are you in your body, connected to the earth, or are you somewhere else, living through the memories of another? Interconnected fantasy, a collective shared reality.
So this one was all about just when you're scrolling through Instagram, and no matter where you are or what you're doing, your brain is very much focused on these things that you're scrolling through. And so it's interesting because the reason we're interested about the stuff that's on Instagram is because we capture the most interesting parts of our life and then put it into this device to share with other people. And it's interesting because it's life, but by us getting so invested in it, it's taking us away from our own life. And so it's almost this like looping paradox. And to me, you might not get this from it, but what this says to me is actually like, it's an important way of communicating the things that we've got and the interesting parts of life, but it's not the thing itself, it's just a representation of the thing. So I've heard people sometimes misunderstand the value of photography. They say, you go somewhere lovely and you're spending all the time with this camera in front of your face, or you're with someone that you care about and you're just doing that, you're disconnected from it. And I think the thing to remember for me particularly is like photography is an excuse to have those moments, to go to those places where you wouldn't necessarily go to. And like, yes, you might spend a very small amount of time with your camera to your face, but actually you're stopping, you're looking, you're thinking, you're reflecting. And so the thing that you come out with at the end, you might have a beautiful image, But the beautiful image is just a reminder of the thing that's really important rather than the thing itself.
Yeah, that reminds me of when we lived together and we were making music together. If we heard any sound that was remotely interesting, we'd be like, get your phone out and record it, we might sample that. But it made you pay attention to the sounds more. So it was like you were experiencing it through your phone, but you were still more attentive because of that. Yeah. Do you want another provocation or?
Okay, one last one.
One more, right.
Pick a short one.
Short one, okay. Hold my mic, please. Oh, that's a long one. That's short enough. I like this photo. Okay, so this is us in Snowdon.
Yep.
So that's when we climbed Mount Snowdon about a decade ago.
2014.
I'm getting old. So the provocation reads, generations before led the way, but now so many paths you could take. So much time spent in debate, back and forth, which path to take.
Yeah, so I'm sure we've all felt like this before when you've looked at all the various options that you have in front of you. And this kind of, to me, this ties into this teenager theme again, which is like when you're younger, you're offered options, like do you want to do A, B or C? But really those options have kind of been offered to you by someone else. You don't really have complete free reign to do what you like. And then you get to this point where those guardrails are taken away and suddenly it's like you can do anything. It's like, wonderful. What the hell do I do? It can be quite frightening really to realise in that moment. Kind of like if you're on top of a mountain and there's like nobody's been down before, like if there's no path to take, everywhere is a path and it's very easy to get quite lost. And so, maybe. So I thought I would pair that with this one in Snowdon. Snowdon's actually an interesting example because there's a train that you can get down. I don't know if anyone's climbed Snowdon before. It's a little bit, I don't know, it feels like it defeats the point to kind of walk up a mountain and then get a train back down. But you can do that if you want. That is one path you can take, or you can take the hard path and walk yourself.
Well, Ben took the path that was like a death trap, if I remember rightly. He walked down this path that was a vertical drop.
I think that was Nevis.
Oh, was it?
That wasn't Snowdon.
Oh, right.
Yeah, Nevis has a bunch of waterfalls which you can get down the mountain quicker.
I was stuck on the family route and he was there, just sliding down, basically. Yeah. But yeah.
We'll leave it there.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you very much. Feel free to come up and ask questions. And yes, books are for sale if you'd like a book.